always interesting to look at context when we are talking about cameras, and the camera I'm talking about today was made in 1960, well 60 to 62, and it's a Zeiss Ikon Colora, spelled Colora, and it's an interesting name because there was other cameras like the Contessa and names which were the Cortina cameras, which had a bit more of a name to them, and the Colora maybe not the most striking name. And it's an interesting camera because it's in one sense it's a quality camera. It's nicely made, it's metal, but it's not the most upmarket camera. Zeiss always sort of did cameras which ranged to the whole market, and they were I think they were very good at doing cameras which were not at the top end but sort of middle to bottom, far higher than something like a Bots Brownie, or and they often used the Nova lens on these cameras, and you notice this with the folding cameras of the time. So we have a Nova lens, and what do we have on this camera? It's a very manual camera, and to load it, we load at the back here. We have a nice clear manual set counter on the front. We have a lever rind here. We do have a reminder of what ISO we are using on the back. There is no meter, there is no rangefinder. This is a basic camera, but what it does help you, the aperture, the f8 is in red, and so that indicates that's a good general aperture, and there's a couple of dots on the lens, one at 5 feet and a smaller one at 15 to 30 feet, which indicates a general focus point, one for groups and one for landscapes. This particular model is in feet, which would suggest it's for the American or for the UK market. If it was for the continental market, it would be marked in meters. It's a very smooth lens. The shutter speeds are 1/30th, 60th, 125 and 250 and bulb. It is not the fastest lens on the block. It's a 3.5, but for the Nova that is absolutely fine and quite standard. We do have a tripod brush on the bottom to rewind the camera, and this is, I think, a little bit of a pain. Although we have a button here, we don't have a crank. We have a mere milled knob here, which I do find is a bit of a pain and was quite common on these type of cameras. Germany had done really well after the war at producing high quality cameras, and this is at the mark where Japanese are just coming in with some fantastic cameras, and the market in the next few years is going to get highly competitive, and the labour costs and the material cost in this camera are quite high. But you do have a camera, and this must be now getting on to being 60 years old actually, and it is working very well. I took it out recently, so let's see how I got on when I took it out. The first photograph, which was taken inside at about, I think it was about f8 because the sun was so bright outside, but we get a really good range of tones and the sharpness here was very encouraging. I was pleased with this initial first shot. And the second shot, again, very contrasted light, but the camera's coping very well. I think maybe it could be a tiny bit sharper. It is sharp, but I think we can tell that it's a Nova and not a Tessa lens. And this is shown even more, I think, in this shot of the workshop. I use this room for a darkroom, and as you can see, I desperately need to do something about this window frame. and it's a good subject to test sharpness. I think I'm about 5.6 here, and the guard in itself is a bit soft, which is deliberate, so I'm pleased about that. But when I was using this camera, and I had only just the camera I tested before this one had a Tessa lens, and the Tessa lens was so sharp. When I look at the Nova here, it's not a bad lens. It's a lens that is providing a sharp image, but it's not quite as sharp as the Tessa. So on using this camera, for a so-called basic camera, I think it's extremely good. It's beautifully made, it's beautifully designed, it really looks the part. And on the whole, I was using, let me think, yes, I was using the Sunny 16 rule, and I was using a 100 Kentmere, no, I tell a lie, I was using a former Pan 100 film, which slightly, in my mind, is often a little bit dense, but I developed this in ID11, diluted 1:1 for 10 minutes, and I'm pleased with the results. Yes, it's a very nice sunny April day when I'm taking these photographs. Again, this is an interesting shot from my point of view, because this road sign I use quite a lot on test films, as well as I quite like to film in different seasons, and you can clearly read it as London Road, but it's just not quite as sharp as the previous one I had done on said Tessa lens. The Nova lens was, there's some debate sometimes, people say, oh, it's so sharp, it's not, did they swap about what lens? No, I think if they said Nova, it's a Nova lens. Again, here we are by the new flats in Dorchester, and this right heart you see here used to be on the outside of a pub building, and it's now by these flats. Again, absolutely fine, the camera performing well, very light and easy to use. I'm scanning at the moment on an Epson scanner, and I'm using ViewScan, which I find to be a very good utility. However, I feel that these are perhaps just being a tad over sharpened. When I didn't have the sharpen filter on, I felt it was a little bit yes, unsharp. I could always do the sharpen in post-production. I think with scanning you do need to do a little bit of sharpening. It's not putting the thing in focus. What the sharpening is doing is it's sharpening all the little pixels a little bit more, and I think just the danger with it is it can over sharpen. Here again, I thought this image was fine, but and you can read clearly the text, but could it be a little bit sharper? Well, and perhaps it could do with a little bit of post-production, but it's a nice camera to use. I did make a slight mistake in that I think I've now messed up the camera a little bit by trying to use the self timer, and the shutter's not very happy, but when I tested it for this film it was a delight to use, and I am very fond of the Zeiss Ikon cameras, especially of this era. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.